Butter and margarine, ketchup and tomato sauce, bananas and plantains. Foods which appear similar enough that one might confuse them at first glance. It's only after closer examination that you find that they are fundamentally different, one usually serving purposes the other doesn't. This principle extends to all walks of life, from animals, minerals, and even film. We're barely removed from the surprise success that was Godzilla Minus One, the low-budget Japanese film which took the world by storm through great word of mouth and sheer will of the Kaiju faithful. It brought the genre back to its roots in a way the world truly needed at the time, reminding everyone what great storytelling was and even nabbing the first Academy Award in the history of the franchise along the way. So it shouldn't be a surprise that around the time Minus One was at its peak, Legendary decided to drop the trailer for the latest installment of their take on the IP, Godzilla x Kong: New Empire. To compare the two seems almost as unfair as comparing a chocolate cupcake to a bran muffin. But hey, them's the breaks when you release so close to each other. So let's take a look, and I guess if you're planning to see this and care about spoilers, go to this timestamp right here. Picking up sometime after Godzilla vs. Kong, the big fuzzy fatality machine has been exiled from the surface and is down in the hollow earth. I still don't understand how this place has sunlight. Doing typical giant monkey stuff like fending off huge wolf creatures using rudimentary traps and being really sad about being the last of his kind. The truce with Godzilla keeps them in their respective domains, and any appearance by Kong on the surface will be considered an act of aggression which can be met with an attack. You know, kind of like running into your baby mama at Walmart while you're buying a TV on the day your child support is due. Speaking of our scaled Cyclopean co-star, he's been very active in eliminating other titans from the surface in a constant bid for sun-soaked supremacy. As the world is still adjusting to the existence of titans, we catch up with a familiar face. Dr. Eileen Andrews is working as a dual research scientist / PR firm for Godzilla, as well as raising Gia, the last of the Iwi tribe. The latter of which is having unexplained psychic visions that are seemingly connected to anomalies from an uncharted section of the Hollow Earth. To try and make heads or tails of it, Dr. Andrews seeks out the aid of Bernie, the conspiracy podcaster from the previous film, to help her draw a connection. Around this time, Kong surfaces in considerable pain, having developed a severely infected tooth, likely from eating that fine cuisine underground. It's here we're introduced to Trapper, the single most annoying veterinarian of all time, who is clearly attempting to channel his inner Star-Lord the entire film.
So he's an idiot.
Yeah.
After about 30 seconds of discussion, they immediately move to extract the infected tooth and replace it. A process that moves so fast I can only assume Kong's dental plan is significantly better than mine. Hi, yes, my mouth seems to be bleeding uncontrollably, and I'm in a considerable amount of pain. What do you mean you can't see me for at least 7 weeks? All of your equipment was commandeered by a shady government organization to tend to a 300-foot ape? Okay, you know what? I'm not even going to question that. I'll just wait the 7 weeks. It's still better than Canada. With Kong's smile successfully secured, he returns to the Hollow Earth, venturing further down into the uncharted regions, where he encounters more of his kind, including a mini Kong who he actually uses as a weapon to beat others senseless. No, you heard that correctly. Soon the humans follow as they realize the anomalies are in fact distress calls. Meanwhile, back on the surface, Godzilla goes full 80s and snorts a big line of radiation and goes after Tiamat, the tremendously territorial titan who controls the largest radiation reserves on the planet. He easily dispatches of her. Off screen. As why the fuck would anybody want to watch that, right? It's not like people want to see big monsters fight or anything.
Let them fight.
And he begins to absorb all the energy, eventually turning into Pinkzilla. While all that's happening, and trust me, it starts to get a bit convoluted and bogged down in the middle, Kong is double-crossed by Mini Kong, who leads him to a river where he is attacked by a Leviathan. Kong easily beheads the beast in a fight that takes place off screen. Can somebody please tell them we want to see the big monsters fucking fight? Seriously. Just as the viewer feels they can't be bombarded with any more plot details, we're exposed to the info dump of all info dumps, as they literally unpack the entire movie in about 10 minutes. The humans find a destroyed outpost with bloody monkey prints. Then they find a temple of Iwi origin with carvings telling the tale of the Scar King, a ruthless great ape tyrant who has enslaved his people and wants to rule the surface. He was thwarted by Godzilla, who barely managed to exile him to the subterranean realm, but now has Shimo, the titan of ice who is responsible for the Ice Age, to fight with him. And the underground Iwi are expecting the return of Mothra to save Earth. Anyway, Kong challenges the Scar King but is unable to defeat him due to the presence of Shimo, who severely frostbites his arm. At least this fight was on screen. Luckily for Kong, that destroyed outpost from earlier happened to house a special mega prosthetic arm for just such an occasion.
You probably don't recognize me because of the red arm.
With his new arm and Godzilla's new progressive hairdo, is their combined might enough to put an end to the Scar King and save the world? And also, seriously, is anybody gonna explain how the sun exists underground? So I'm not gonna lie to you, this film wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination. For everything it does right, it does at least one other wrong. Considering just 6 months ago we had Godzilla Minus One, which was a damn near perfect film, it makes those issues all the more glaring. Pacing does seem to be the biggest culprit here.
The pacing of this film is terrible, and it could have been cut down by 20 to 30 minutes.
Ah, there you are, old friend. Good to see you back. From the get-go, it jumps out to a breakneck pace, introducing and reintroducing characters faster than you can even connect them to the previous film. When it hits Act 2, it slows down to a near crawl and tries to add way too much to the plot through one-off lines meant to explain everything. This isn't the first time in the MonsterVerse that we've seen this issue. Almost every entry in the series has been plagued by a severe lack of streamlining the key plot points in favor of trying to have 2 or 3 films in one. If there's a section of the movie which is truly the shallow end of the pool, it's the character work. Obviously, Godzilla and Kong are the main attractions and are for the most part unable to progress a character journey outside of getting better at fighting. Unfortunately, that lack of development extends to most of the human characters as well. This is primarily due to the shared screen time not allowing for much room to explore them, and made worse by the fact that it's interspersed between the titular characters. Dr. Andrews, played by Rebecca Hall, is the one who shows the most growth, as she tries to balance being a new mother of an adoptive daughter from a very different culture alongside her career obligations. I just wish there was a bit more substance there, as that storyline plays second fiddle to everything else. Brian Henry's portrayal of Bernie is basically stuck in neutral from his previous appearance. He's still obsessed with his blog and conspiracy theories, as well as his perceived slighting at saving the world and having nothing to show for it, which is translated into fighting with internet trolls. Okay, at least I can empathize a bit with that last part. The only new supporting character is Trapper, the eccentric veterinarian who might be the most annoying character in the entire film, as actor Dan Stevens is trying his hardest to steal the show by acting like Chris Pratt, but with half the body mass and a quarter of the charm. The last character I'd like to touch on is Gia, the deaf and mute Iwi girl who has a special connection to Kong. Considering Kaylee Hodel is deaf in real life, they've actually found a way to do diversity right with this one, as it's incorporated into the narrative of both appearances she's made without seeming forced. Maybe Disney should take some notes on this one.
You've got to do better, Senator.
Seeing as how this story is about impossibly gigantic lizards, monkeys, and other nightmare fuel clashing, a reliance on CG is to be expected, which is the unfortunate norm of cinema nowadays. However, when it comes to movies which rely heavily on computer generation, you could do a lot worse than this, as the visuals are significantly above many we've seen in recent years. No, where this movie suffered the most is in the earliest phase of production, the writing. Several times they attempt what has come to be known as Marvel humor, which is out-of-place jokes in otherwise serious situations. And much like their Marvel inspiration, they fall flat more often than not, with what was supposed to be a zinger ending up like a bad sitcom one-liner without a laugh track.
The girls tell me you own cleaning service. I would like to hire you to clean my house.
I was some girl. What is your address?
I don't want some girl. I want you to come clean.
You cannot get me to come.
In the end, Godzilla x Kong is a stark reminder that things can look similar at a quick glance, but once you peel back the surface, you see that they aren't the same at all. It's a serviceable movie with some fun bits and a fair amount of flaws which place it squarely in middling at best. Not particularly bad in any way, but also not a must-see by any stretch. If Godzilla Minus One is a medium rare bone-in ribeye, this is the slightly overcooked skirt steak. And if that's not enough to convince you that I'm about as on the fence as I possibly can be about this drastic downgrade from last year's massive monster movie, I'm not sure anything I could possibly say would do the trick.